Now, if you live in Florida, you might have heard of Dick Chaney, but did you know that it's possible, just maybe, that he has Trayvon Martin's heart right in his chest? But look, don't worry. I did some digging. Let's get into it. Now look, y'all been tagging me for the last 3 days about this story. And I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't gonna do it, but as I was doing the digging, it started getting interesting. Now, I feel a certain way about this, but I'm not gonna make y'all feel a certain way. I'm gonna go over all the digging that I did. And I want y'all to tell me how y'all feel in the comments. So, if you don't know who Dick Chaney is, he was the vice president, all right? And thing is about Dick Chaney, don't nobody like him. They still don't like him. Now, the reason why they don't like bruh is because he put in this law way back, okay? It's called Your Home is Your Castle Law. And the thing about this law is if you inside of your house and somebody come onto your yard and you feel threatened, for your life, you can do what you gotta do. And the thing is, a lot of people didn't like that. Okay, and right after they put this law into place, firearm sales skyrocketed. But that ain't it though. They made a few changes to the law. And if you somebody on your yard, you feel threatened, and you show your protection, and they decide to run, there was a loophole. If they were running and you still decided to do what you needed to do, you could get away with that. It was a loophole. And then they changed it again. And this is where the stand your ground law comes into play, because not only do you, should you be able to protect yourself, at your home, your home is your castle law. No matter where you at, you could be at, McDonald's, Chili's, Applebee's on Friday, and you feel threatened for your life right in the parking lot, you can do what you got to do. Don't matter. Just say you feel threatened for your life. You was, standing ground. And then, at this time, about 4 or 5 states actually took this, thing into play. And that's where Florida comes into play. Because Florida, they took on this law. And then, if people didn't like him enough, but he goes hunting with his buddy. He was out there shooting ducks or swans or whatever it was, but he accidentally turns and, go after one of the ducks. But instead he hit his buddy, who's a lawyer. So, this Harry Whittington, I believe his name, they investigated this whole, ordeal, and they both said same story, said the same thing. It was an accident. But this is my thing. Bro got hit in the face. You got to give me a little compensation. You got to pay me. Friends or not. But you done hit me with a 28 gauge buckshot. I'm gonna need you to write me a check. But around 2009, 2010, bruh started having heart problems, right? Heart giving out. And he's kind of debating if he actually wants to, get a heart transplant. So his wife kind of like forced him to get on the list. So bruh get on the list. And he sit on that list for about 2 years. Now, this is where Trayvon Martin comes into play, all right? If you don't know who Trayvon Martin is, in Sanford, Florida, 2012, February 26th, feel me? His life was taken away from him, okay? Unnecessarily. And the person responsible for all of this is George Zimmerman. Look, we know who this is. Everybody know who this is. I ain't got to say his name, okay? Matter of fact, I don't want to say his name. His face is no good nowhere in America. I don't care where you at, bro. You will forever be harassed. Anyway, they had a whole long trial, all right? And he was found not guilty. But before this trial even started, all right, around March 22nd, they start putting out on the news that Dick Chaney's not doing good and he really needs a heart. But the news about the Trayvon Martin, incident really didn't hit like national news until about March 22nd, all right? Central Florida knew. The whole Sanford area, Florida knew. But nationally, didn't really get out until late March. But look at this though. So he right outside the Capitol, okay? Somewhere in like Virginia or somewhere, laid up. real nice hospital, okay? And he needs his heart transplant. But they get word. They get word that one is available. Now, if you understand how the list for these things go, it's just, if you next, and there's a heart available. Now, I don't know how true this is, okay? I always tell y'all if I don't really believe, even if I'm going down a rabbit hole, but it was said that miraculous, they got a phone call, okay? And saying, look, there's a heart available. It'll be here in 3 hours, okay? But y'all got to understand something. This in March. The Trayvon Martin incident happened in February. And this is where things get a little bit shaky about this whole story. Now, real quick, okay, before I move on, people say he does have Trayvon Martin's heart, okay? There's articles and it's all over social media. And as I'm, reading all of these articles and I'm watching these videos and I'm doing my own personal digging, the chances that he, Dick Chaney, got Trayvon Martin's heart is probably about 0.01%. And let me explain why. Now, like I said, the Trayvon Martin incident happened in February 2012, all right? And they didn't call it until about 2 days later. I read that, okay? Not how, 100% sure that is, but it said about 2 days later is when they called it. Now, when it comes down to organ donating, all right? So a few things you got to understand. These things don't last long outside of the body. And the heart and the lungs are the most sensitive. So if you're doing a heart transplant, once that heart leaves one body, you only got about a good 4 to 6 hours before you can transplant this heart in a new body. Now, that 4 and 6 hours, that includes it being on ice. So that's the longest that it can go. That's it. Now, Dick Chaney, he get his heart transplant till late March. Weeks. There's no possible way that the heart from Trayvon Martin is inside of this guy. And if that doesn't do it, I have some more information for you. Now, when the autopsy came back for Trayvon, all right, they said his heart was damaged. There was no possible way that it could be used. I just think people get on the internet and just say anything. Also, if that don't do it for you, he wasn't an organ donor. Mama and his daddy said he's not an organ donor. He didn't donate any of his organs. Now, the only way, possibly, maybe, if any of his organs, y'all already know how they be doing. We ain't gonna say too much, but you know how, your organs be missing. Now, I will say this, okay? Whoever heart bruh got, they got a good one, all right? Gave bruh extra 13, 14 years. He was 71 when he had the transplant. Now, look, I don't know what y'all gonna do to remember this. Like it, comment, share it. Please share it. I don't know, but the more you know. Peace.